So, have you ever seen really bright colors, say in a fashion magazine, like those really nice editorial spreads, and think, I really wish I could wear those colors? If you have, if there are certain colors you've been dying to put on your face and you just haven't quite been able to bring yourself to do it, or you haven't gotten the results you like, I hope that I can offer you some tips today that will help you be able to wear the colors that you love. So my foundation is done. My eyes are prepped. I already have, eyeshadow primer on. And the first thing I'm going to start with is a transition color. Now, a transition color is a color that is perhaps 2 or maybe 3 shades deeper than your skin tone. It can be warm, it can be cool. That's really up to your personal preference. But it's really something that even if you weren't to blend a lot, isn't going to really stand out. The goal of a transition color is really to just ease the transition between whatever your primary lid color is and the rest of your skin. So I'm going to go into a shade that is just a couple shades darker than my skin, and it's just kind of a warm brown right here. And this is from my Juvia's Place Masquerade palette, and the color is Burkina. So I'm just going to take a fluffy eyeshadow brush, and I'm going to just kind of broadly get my entire crease area with this color. How high you go up on your brow, on your lid, up towards your brow, is really up to personal preference. The one thing I like about using a transition color is you can actually go pretty high up and it's not going to look really jarring because it is such a close color to your skin. And as you can see, I have a fair amount of lid space, so I like to kind of take some of that up away. And sometimes actually pulling that color up, if you do it right and you really make a smooth transition, can actually make your lid seem less heavy. You might think it would be the opposite, like, oh, if I'm putting a darker color over my lid, it's going to seem heavier. But actually it just kind of sinks it into the background a little bit more so that the rest of your eyes becomes the focus. So now that I have my transition color down, I'm going to go a little bit deeper and start to really work into my crease colors. So I think I'm going to be doing some blues and greens. So I'm going to go a little bit cooler with my crease color than I normally would. And I'm going to go with, from the Juvia's Place Nubian palette, this color isn't labeled, but it's this kind of neutral deep brown. And I'm going to go in with an angled crease brush, and this is the Sigma Small Tapered Blending E45. And I'm just deepening this crease. I personally like to lay the color down first, especially for crease work, and then blend. I like to do that for both eyes. That way I can see that I've got an even amount of color where I want it, and then I can blend with a clean brush. For me, sometimes it's hard to tell when I look at both eyes if they're uneven where that happened, like what step of the blending process that was, or if it was, that I put more in one place than the other. For me, it's just easier to look when I'm putting it on, if I've got the placement correct, to where it looks even for both eyes, and then blend it all out. So that's my general placement. I think that works for me for just getting that initial color down. I'm going to put it on the other eye, and then I'm going to blend. So now that I have the color laid down on both lids, I'm going to blend the edges so it's a little smoother. You can use a fluffy brush for this, but I actually like a smaller one for my crease colors because I really like to prevent it from really blowing out too far. So I'm actually going to use my Wangos number 20 brush and just work my way around the outside of it. So part of the reason why I love wearing bright colors so much is because I've always loved art, I've always loved color, and I feel like spending the time to really do what you want with your face, treating it as a canvas instead of something to be fixed or hidden or perfected. There's something inherently really loving about that, and I think it's a healthy way to look at makeup if it's what you like, right? If you don't care for color and you don't care for makeup, you know, no sense in spending the time. I think that a lot of times we end up spending a lot of time on makeup for a look that isn't really for us. It's really just what people tell us we should want. But the truth is, there's really no one else to wear makeup for. You know, it's our face, it's a fun thing to do with our face. And I think the more that you can own it as something to enjoy, the better. If I had to start every day spending however much time you spend on makeup, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, just trying to like change the way that my face looks, I don't think it would be a good day. So that's just me though. So now that I have my crease color blended out, I'm going to go ahead and take some of that same color just onto my mobile lid around the outer third. So I'm doing kind of a classic C shape with my crease color. So now that I have my crease color in and kind of blended out, I can go ahead and pick a color. Now remember, for your transition color and your crease color, that's going to really be determined by your personal preference and your skin tone. So if you're much paler than me, you're going to of course go with lighter transition colors. If you are darker than me, you're going to go with darker transition colors. If you really want to turn this into an evening look, you can even go in with your crease color with some black and really deepen that up and make it a little more dramatic. But the basics of the shape work really well for this look. Now, looking at colors, honestly, when you're determining what colors you want to wear, it's going to be whatever you want. And with a really simple like backdrop that we have here with our transition and crease colors, just about any color will work. And that means colors that you thought you couldn't wear. If I wanted to put a pastel in there, I could. Something really bright and bold, I could. It's any color goes once you have a really good transition. And I just give it a try. If you're really pale skinned and you thought you couldn't wear bright yellow, try to put this base on and then try it out, and I bet you'll love it. So I've decided I'm going to go with blue and green for my lid colors. Now, because these are lighter colors, like brighter kind of almost neons, I'm going to put a bit of a white base underneath. If you have really, really, really pale skin, you may not have to do this. But if you have darker skin and you want your colors to really pop, it's definitely something you might want to give a try. It's just going to give a space for the colors to show their true color. And I'm just putting it over the area where I'm going to be putting the color. And then you can just kind of fade it up a little bit. For this, I am using the NYX Jumbo Eye Pencil in Milk that I just depotted so that I could use a brush with it. So now that that is down, I'm going to go ahead and get my shadow colors. So I am working with some more Juvia's Place colors. I'm going to start here with this color from the Zulu palette. and I'm going to transition it into this color from the same palette. Now, if you want to get the most bang for your buck out of your shadows, this is where you use a flat shader brush. And honestly, for me, I found it does not matter what brand. These do not have to be expensive. But basically, you want a brush that is flatter, has really dense bristles, and a wide enough with this soft curve that kind of fits, you know, into your lid and can pack shadow on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gather a bunch of shadow, a bunch of color, kind of knock off your excess on the side here, like this. And then I'm just going to press it into my lid. I am not wiping, I'm pressing. Oh, you know what? I put it on opposite of how I want. Damn it. Let me clean that up. The great thing about eye makeup is it's fixable. Well, now we're back to where we were. I'm going to go into that blue color first. Got it loaded up on the brush. And I am pressing it in to the lid. Doing this too is also going to cut down on the amount of fallout that you get on your cheeks. So I'm going to go about halfway with that color. So now that I have that color placed, I'm going to go into that green and get the inner portion of my mobile lid. Okay, so now that my colors are placed, it does look a bit blocky, like maybe a little bit wild. But what I'm going to do now is simply take my fluffy blending brush and blend the transitions between the blue and the green and my crease colors and those colors. If it seems like when you're blending that you're kind of losing a little bit of color, some of it's brushing off, that happens, you're just going to take a small brush and go ahead and put some of that color back and just give it a quick blend. Now I'm going to go ahead and blend the transition from my darker crease color to my blue. So now that that is all blended out, and you can see it's a nice gradient, it's a really pretty gradient, I am going to go ahead and go back into my crease color and just kind of touch up places where perhaps that shimmer kind of bled into the crease and where the crease color maybe got a little diluted from the blending, just to make sure that it looks nice and strong. If at any point in time you find that perhaps, you know, in adding to your crease color that it becomes a little too much for you, go ahead and go back into that transition color and just run it along the top edge and then blend. And as long as your brush is clean when you grab that transition color, it's going to really soften it up. So now that that is all blended out, I'm going to go ahead and put on some liner. I would say if you're doing like a broad wash of color, let's say like you want like a bright peach or orange that just kind of like goes over your lid and fades into nothing, and you're not doing like this big transition and all of that, you might even want to skip liner and just keep that like bright look. But I find that a liner really does kind of ground everything for me when I'm working with bright shadows. Now, to be even more fun, I'm going to add even more color. And this is something you can do even with a fully neutral eye. If you want a pop of color, but maybe not too much color, is you can go with a colored liner. So I have got this bright yellow liner from Inglot, and I'm going to start with that. Why is it not recording? My lashes always turn bright yellow when I do this because I have very curly lashes, and it's really hard for me to work around and not completely coat them. So now I'm going to go ahead and start my lower lash line, and I'm going to start with that same transition color that I used on my upper lid. So now that I have my transition color, I get to decide kind of what I want to put on for my main color for my lower lid. And you can definitely just do like maybe your crease color, and that will just kind of tie into the top but not add more brightness to it. I personally want to add more brightness to it, so I think I'm going to go in actually with some bright pink. So I'm going with this color, which is from the Masquerade palette as well. It's called Bori. So I am going to take just the small stiff brush. I don't know what type of brush this is, you guys, because I don't know where it is. I've had it forever, but I don't think I paid more than $2 for it. And I'm going to run some of that pink that's the sound of bowling balls you're hearing right there. My son is taking his bowling supplies to his dad's for the weekend. And putting that transition color underneath the pink is going to stop that pink from looking sickly. It can be really hard to put pinks and reds under the lash line, and a transition color definitely helps. So now that my yellow has had a chance to set, I'm going to go ahead and go in with black. And I'm just going to make a slightly slimmer line than I made before with the yellow. So it's just going to come almost to the yellow, but not quite. It's okay as you get to the inner corner if it completely covers up the yellow. So long as you get a clean line. You don't necessarily have to run the black underneath with bright colors. In fact, sometimes I find that, especially with a more neutral eye look, it's just a really fun extra to have a pop of color on the lid without the black. But because yellow can be, it can kind of wash your eye out, the black is still going to give that much needed definition to your eye. So that's one eye done, and you can see how the yellow just becomes like a highlight above the black. And because I did the bold yellow first and the black on top, I don't have to worry about getting a super fine line of yellow. I basically just do my black until it's, you know, a little bit below the yellow. So I went ahead and did my lashes off camera, and the next step, the final step on the eyes, is just a little inner corner highlight. So I'm going to just take a light, like icy color for this inner corner highlight because my blues and greens are kind of cool, and I'm going to put it right in the inner corner. I think I always find an inner corner highlight almost always just really finishes an eye look. And next I'm going to move on to cheeks, and you absolutely can do a bright eye, bright lip, and a bright cheek, and it doesn't look overdone. It all kind of depends on the intensity of the color, the opacity of the color, and just kind of how you apply it. So I personally like, if I'm doing a really colorful eye, to also do a bit of a colorful cheek. I think it just kind of ties it together and can actually make everything seem a little less in your face if done properly. So the blush that I'm going to use on my cheeks is this color right here, which I am obsessed with, and I wish you could see. It's really more of a, yeah, there we go. It's more of a coral color, and this is by Milani, and it is just beautiful. I know that's not quite in focus, but that is actually more of the true color. It's called Coral Cove, and it's such a beautiful coral color, but it's also not so much pigment that you can't work with it. I'm going to take my Wayne Goss number 10 brush, just grab a little bit of that, and I'm going to apply. And I'm going to look at applying, start right here at where I want the most color concentration. And then I'm going to go ahead and blend. And as you can see, this is a pop of color that's very beautiful, very pinky peach, but because I am putting it in lower amounts, I'm really kind of dialing down the opacity of it. It's giving a vibrant bit of punch. The lights are kind of washing it out a little bit, but it's not overwhelming, not overly competing with the eyes. I always put a little bit of blush on my chin and a little bit on my forehead. I just like it. I think it ties it in more. So once I have my overall color placed, I like to then look and see if I want to maybe punch up the apples in my cheeks. I usually just put a tad more, right? Not at the apples, but I would say like at the outermost high point of my cheek. The apples would be like here. And I personally, as I get older, like to really keep color away from there because I find that it can drag my face down. But to each his own. It's a nice look, but it's a completely different look. Alright, so now I've got my blush on. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of highlight on. So I'm going to be using my Fenty Beauty highlighter, the Kilowatt highlighter in Chic Freak and Girl Next Door. It's beautiful. And since I have kind of a pinky thing going on right now, I think this highlighter is really nice. It's not going to clash, but it's also a pretty subtle glow, so it's not going to compete. And I'm just using the edge, the point of that same brush, and I'm going to the high point of my cheek and then just kind of melting it down into the blush. Right now I'm using the color of Girl Next Door, which is the more subtle, a little less glittery side. And it's just such a beautiful, like, I don't want to say wet highlight because that sounds, I don't know, it sounds gross. I know people say it. I don't know, to me it just sounds gross, but it is. It's like a more of a sheen, like your skin is really glossy. And it's just a little less in your face. We'll run that above my brow. And I'm going to run a little down the bridge of my nose. Whether you guys highlight the bridge of your nose or whatnot, that's up to you. I just really like it. I can get carried away, and I think it's really easy to get carried away in front of the lights, because even though it'll catch it and you're like, oh, that looks really, really great, then you get out in the street and you're like, holy shit, what did I do? Although, honestly, I rarely do have a highlight regret. I just love being really shiny. So, it's not usually highlight regret, but it'll usually be something like, I'll say, can you see my highlighter? And someone will be like, yes, yes, yes. And that's when I realize it's like, you know, visible from space, but it's my face. Where's my fan brush? So now I'm going to take a fan brush and go into the more glimmery side, which is the Chic Freak. And I'm going to run that just over the high points of my cheekbone. Really just add a nice little bit of, as you can see, extra glimmer. And I'm going to keep its bow. So now my cheeks are done, my highlight is done, and all that's left are lips. And so for lips, I wanted to still keep it kind of colorful, but not to go all out. And honestly, sometimes depending on the mood, I could even do like a bright orange lip, but I really wanted to make this keeping that kind of pinky tone. I feel like it's a good way to keep it colorful and still tie in, because I've got the pink under the eye, the pink blush, and now I'll have a pinky toned lip. So for my lips, I'm going to be using Ultimate Stay by, oh god, who is this by? Oh yeah, Catrice. I really do like their lip colors. And this is the color. It's a nice pink, nice kind of beautiful blue pink, and I think it's going to tie into the overall color scheme of my face, and that's color number 120, called Looks Like Coral. I'm going to line my lips in my Colourpop liner in Lady, and it's more of a kind of a brownie pink, which for me ends up being a good kind of grounding color for brighter colors. If you are lighter skinned, of course, you're going to go a little bit lighter. Darker skinned, well, this will actually probably work for quite a few bit darker, but then, you know, there are darker colors. When lining my lips to do a bolder color and I want to ground that color, I always make sure to get the inner corners of my top and bottom lips with the liner. And then I just kind of like to take my finger and lightly smudge the inner edge of the liner. So it's a smoother transition. So now that my lips are fully lined, I'm going to go in with my lip color, this peachy pink. And then you can just take your fingers or a lip brush and kind of smooth that transition between your liner and your lip color. And there we go. It's a nice pop of bright color, but it isn't really like too bold. It's beautiful, but not too much when you take the rest of the face into consideration. So here is the finished look. We have really nice bright blue and green eyes with a pop of yellow and black liner, a beautiful peachy pink corally blush, and a peachy pink lip to go with it. Altogether, it's a very colorful face. It's a very fun, vibrant face, but it's not like too much. And of course, too much is always going to be defined by you, but I personally, this is something I could just walk around and be completely comfortable in. And when I wear makeup like this, honestly, people just give me a bunch of compliments. I think that when you see other people wearing what they love in full confidence, it inspires other people. So when I go out, and I know I have just had a blast putting a bunch of really fun color on my face, and I'm out like grocery shopping or running errands, because you guys, I'm really boring. Like, I don't get all dolled up to go to parties because I just don't go to parties. But, you know, when I'm like hanging out at Central Market and, you know, shopping for yogurt, and people will always be like, oh my God, I love your makeup. And it's really the fun of it they like. It's not always the artistry. It's not about whether or not, you know, your wing is perfect. It's about how much fun you had. And I think color is one of the main reasons why we get into makeup, is we see all these beautiful colors, especially as kids, and we really want to put them on our face. Your face is like a really fun canvas and it's your own. And I think we get away from that as we get older, and we're told that there's certain colors we can't wear. And it's just not true. You can wear any color you want, no matter what, because it's your face. It doesn't matter what people think about it. You can accomplish that look by just grounding it in a nice neutral transition color, varying the intensity of the color that you put on, and really honestly just going outside like you meant it. I think that any look, 90% of it is just walking around in it like you meant to do it. I think a lot of times people try something new and then they walk around like they're apologizing for it. And I think that that lack of confidence kind of gives other people a lack of confidence in your look. But y'all, I have worn some of the weirdest shit with 100% confidence just because it gave me joy and made me smile. And even if the people looking at me would never dream of wearing it, they still enjoy seeing me in it. And I enjoy seeing me in it. I enjoy wearing it. And I think that when it comes to color, really get in there and have fun. I think it will remind you of why you started wearing makeup in the first place. It will remind you of when you were a kid, kind of messing around in your mom's makeup. And I think that we need a little bit of that joy every day. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If you like this video, make sure to share and subscribe. And if you have any ideas of what you want to see for future videos, please go ahead and leave them in the comments. I will be checking them, and I will try and answer whatever questions I have. And until then, we'll see you in the next video.